Yes, I think that's us live. I will just check on my fancy monitor that I've got by the side of me here. It's called my mobile phone. I've not got three screens like Millbilly. How you doing, Millbilly?
4 screens. I'm good.
4 screens. 4 screens now. Yeah. Been busy week this week.
Yeah, you can see that.
Been looking at a few more things, listening to a few phone calls, stuff like that. Watching a few videos.
Just been researching things here and there.
Yep.
More of the events of 11/3. And what time Colburn could have came to the Avery salvage yard.
Yep.
His window to be there is very small.
Yeah, well, I mean, what time did he actually take the phone call? What time did the sheriff's department, did Manitowoc get that phone call? And it's interesting, of course, it's always him that gets phone calls, isn't it?
It's not time stamped. Don't know.
What time does he say that he went out to the yard? Is it around about 7:30?
Which is impossible.
Right.
He gets off the phone with Jody at 5:46. Chuck's account, they leave at 6:30. Steven's account, they left at 7.
Right.
So 25-minute route from Avery Salvage Yard to Menards. He says they spent about 45 minutes there. They're checking out at 8:20. Law enforcement says they left the parking lot at 8:28. So you take the 45 minutes they were there. So that would make it, 7:30? Take the 22-minute drive, would make it about, 7:10 maybe. You got to account that it took them 8 minutes to drive from Avery's to Jambo Creek and turn around. And then you got to account to them searching. So Chuck's account of 6:30 is more accurate than Steven's 7.
Right.
So the window between Colburn and getting there is between as soon as Steven hangs up the phone and 6:30. But you also got to count to that after Steven talks to Colburn, he then drives down by Barb's, parks his car in the driveway, goes in by Barb, talks to Bobby and them, tells them the cops just were there looking for Teresa. Barb asks if she can remove the trailer from her vehicle. He does that, cuts open his hand, walks over to his Grand Am, grabs his phone charger, goes in the rear door of his house, goes in the bathroom, runs out the front door, gets in the truck with Chuck, drives to Jambo Creek, comes back. So, yeah.
Yeah. Did he am I right in saying he just put a bit of tape over the cut? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And sorry.
Colburn's account of things are wrong. Just like they're slowly piecing it together.
Yep. What have you been up to, Magilla?
Okay, so I've got a window ready to share. Is mine being shared?
Indeed. There it is. Yes.
Okay, and that's not good. So let me get over to the right tab here. Okay, so we're gonna talk about we're gonna start off talking about this tire print that we have that might help identify who the accomplice was for planting the Rav4.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start out. This is a picture I made a long time ago. This is a picture of the yard. We start in the top left corner. We see the whole salvage yard, and that red box is showing what we're zooming in on, which is the way into the salvage yard on the backside from Conveyor Road. So this double-laned road coming in diagonally is what we call Conveyor Road. Mm-hmm. It's not really a road, of course, but that's what we've called it during the project.
Well, the road that goes between Jambo Creek and Q is called Conveyor Road.
Oh, it's actually between them, but this one that goes into the Avery yard Might
Yeah,
have been conveyor road, but it has a conveyor on it, and it's sort of a road. So
there's a road on each side. There's a road on each side of the conveyor.
right. So one of the things that was exciting about it was there was this red Pinto shell
Yep.
that was laying across it that Zellner had identified as potentially being the thing that the
Yeah.
Rav4 got damaged shoving out of the way. So if we call the two lanes on conveyor road, the top one and the bottom one, or the north one and south one, the Pintos on the top one or the north one, that was blocked by the Pinto, as you can see in the upper right hand corner. But if it was shoved a little bit out of the way, maybe you could get a car between it and the car that was off on the shoulder up there. This is what the Pinto looked like. It's a Pinto station wagon body, but it has some sort of monstrosity type bumper on it, and it didn't have wheels on all its corners. And I think there was some talk that it wasn't really even a Pinto underneath, that a lot of parts were missing. It's just sort of a shell.
Yep.
So let's not do that. Okay, so that takes us to a whole nother discussion. So what happened was there's this location along what we'll call the south or bottom conveyor road. Let me see if I have an overhead handy. This is a thread I just made while Teresa and I were working on this.
Sure.
And we bounce topics on these sort of stream of consciousness threads. So I don't really see, but on the South Road, there's a way to get through, but there might have been some debris on the way. And there's this location where the police found something that they dug out with the shovel. You can see this shovel and the scissors are actually the police's. These weren't just sitting there.
No.
They've shoveled something out of the earth, and it's labeled with evidence marker Y. And evidence marker X here is just this tire that they believe got rolled out of the way. So, or we believe it got rolled out of the way. The police decided all this didn't really matter. Later. So one of the great things is Jerese came up with this photo they took before they dug that area up. And this is an important photo. I think maybe I zoomed into it, or that's zooming too much. So let me try to get us a little better view of this thing. So you can see this is a tire tread. And it's got these very strong ridges on its edge that are in what I've been calling a sawtooth or a gear tooth type pattern.
Yep.
And then you can see it's got evenly spaced treads inside. So this side over. Can you guys see my mouse just before I?
Yep.
Okay. It's got this side is where the tire is, and this is outside of the vehicle. So this edge is the edge of the tire, and the tire's over here.
Right.
Okay, so if we go back and we go to my zoom here, we see that this green grass was crushed when this tire came through. You can see the ridge of the tire is actually where the grass is crushed.
Yep. And
it's still green, and I think it would probably turn gray after being crushed within a few days.
Yep.
So this says this is actually pretty fresh for when they investigated it. And of course, a few days before they investigated it is when Teresa went missing. So this tire tread is important, even though, of course, the prosecution didn't fit it into its case and tried to argue it wasn't important. At the time, the police, so there's this evidence photo of the casting they made of that hole.
Right.
I wasn't sure if this was the casting or the dirt they had dug out of the hole. But either way, it reminded me of bread with hair, and there's something about the picture that's just a little disturbing. But this now is a positive print of that tire tread, where we had a negative in the ground, and you can see it has almost these bolt-like hexagonal points on the rim of it.
Yep.
Which would be very unusual for a street tire. My first thought was it was construction equipment. So here's a close-up of that tread. So you can see about 1 inch spaces on the edge. It has these hexagonal areas. That's a very unusual tire trait. So the first thing I did with Jerez was we investigated whether the so this is the what's called a wheel loader, or some people call it a front end loader.
Yep.
But it's what they use to load the car crusher. I identified it as a case W20. There's usually a letter after the W20. I'm not sure what the letter is for this one. But its tires are hard rubber, and let's see, I think, and then this is the skid steer, and it also has hard rubber tires, and you can see that these tires don't match that at all. The skid steer don't, and then this is the normal tires that are on the case wheel loader, and these are hard rubber tires, so they're not going to go flat, even running over nails and things, and so it does, and then I think this is actually a photo I got of the. This might be the skid steer.
If you look at the Tyson exit video, they go inside the blue shed where the front end loader is parked.
Yeah, so we can confirm
the tires from there, but I'm pretty sure that's Teresa's tire.
What, this?
The casting.
No. So I have a comparison with Teresa's tire.
The bear claws.
Hold on. We're getting into. Okay, so here's Teresa's tire. It definitely doesn't have anything like those hexagonal spots on it. It's just a normal radial. So a radial's not going to have a rough edge, because the radial it's actually going to use its edge when it's cambered. And here's another picture. That's the one I actually got the tire tread from. If you look at even here, I think you can see that it doesn't match just on like your normal analysis of rows. So hers it should be a wide, 2 narrow, and a wide, and it should have three of these gutter patterns in the rubber. And we see like a narrow, a wide, and a narrow here. So we have because of the crushed grass. So if we just go, I think I summarize it here. We have a very good mold of it that the police made. You know, a lot of the police were just trying to solve this and weren't involved in whatever nonsense was going on. And then we have a nice picture of it. The picture gives us the mold gives us evidence of the tread. And the picture gives us evidence that it was contemporaneous because of the crushed grass. So I actually went to some tire shops. So my next thought was that this tire might be for off-roading.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Could be from a four-wheeler.
Yeah, a four-wheeler or some vehicle that does all-terrain or off-roading, so that it can have some obscene. Also, up here in Wisconsin, in the northern parts of the state, a lot of people drive cars on ice.
Yeah.
So Down in Milwaukee, we don't get that much permanent ice. Maybe we'll get it for 6 weeks
Yeah.
on Lake Milwaukee or something. But you never want to drive on Lake Michigan for sure. And but in the north part of the state, they might get permanent ice on their
Well,
lakes for 3-4 months.
Depends on what part of Lake Michigan you go. If you're inside the harbor, it completely freezes. You can go out there and go ice fishing anytime you want.
Well, if you're on a shelf and you know you have a good amount of solid ice, but
Lake Winnebago, that freezes over every year.
yeah, well, Lake Winnebago's quite a bit north of us, and that's where you start getting, where there's a lot of recreation with
Yeah, I
snowmobiling
remember
on the ice.
2 years ago, Lake Michigan almost completely froze over.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but the problem is if you fall into Lake Michigan, you are in a lot of trouble.
You fall into any kind of water, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Well,
Especially if you're falling through ice.
well, I think the police tell you that you should, or the park rangers, that you should have 18 inches of ice. Not just frozen over. And then
for sure.
and then up north in the state, that happens for long parts of the year. They do a lot more snowmobiling. They do a lot more snowmobiles on frozen lakes. So one of the things I found was up north in Crazy Land, one of the things they have is this thing called an ice rally.
Yep.
And they actually take sports cars out on the ice, and people make these self-studded custom wheels to help them for traction on ice.
Yep.
Now, this would be a very extreme for just all-terrain because if you're doing all-terrain, you still want to be able to drive on roads. And if you drive on a road with this thing, I think the police are going to be pretty unhappy with you when you tear up all the concrete. But even these things, most of the references I found, basically the bolts are attached inside the tire, sticking out, and the nuts are laid down. So you wouldn't get this almost looks like the bolts are flat on the outside of the tire. But it's very distinctive. These things that look like bolts, it may be because it's a track vehicle or something. But I don't have it identified. I went to a couple of tire stores that sell tires for off-roading, and they worked on it a couple days, bounced it off their other guys, and they told me they don't have an answer yet, but they're still thinking about it.
Right.
So one thing I just wanted to start the conversation today with this was just if anybody in the audience thinks they have any idea what this thing is. We think the RAV4 was brought in on that South Conveyor Road.
That's what Colburn. That's what Fassbender and Wiegert tell Stephen Avery on the 9th. That's how the car got there. Came through the field, through the deer camp, on a conveyor road, in through the back.
Right, and then it might be it tried the North Conveyor Road until it encountered the Pinto, and came back and went on the South Conveyor Road. There is a way through on South Conveyor Road, but you got to get off the road onto the shoulder to do it.
And you would also have to know the property.
Right, but actually we were working on that. All right, so this is a good picture. So here's this area on South Conveyor Road. This little Mustang here in the yellow circle, the white car, it's actually maybe powder blue, I can't remember. That's the car that's right by the wheel and the tire imprint.
Right.
Right. So if they came up the North Conveyor Road and encountered the Pinto and came up South Conveyor, or maybe the Pinto has nothing to do with anything, this would be a point where the main road was blocked by this whole mass of cars, and then there was this dirt road off to the side. Mm-hmm. And we have evidence now that a second vehicle was there that has this crazy tire tread. And what I think is this is probably a place where at least one of the drivers of the cars got out and scouted ahead on foot.
Mm.
So you remember we have a leg of the scent trail from that location. So this point right here, can you see where I'm saying that, like this elbow?
Yep.
Yep.
That's where they would be scouting on foot, and maybe this whole track was laid down while they were scouting around. They might have walked on the main trail behind the cars, come down this road, and realized they were getting right back where they were. I think they did know from the layout of the property that the homes were somewhere north of them, so they probably wanted to stay in the back of the property. But that's what I'm beginning to think this is somebody scouting from the RAV4 and the white Jeep on foot for a place to go, because it's just it's in or if they knew the property, why they didn't just drive by Chuck's house is the other question.
Yeah.
Okay, so if they did that, some other things that we can talk about. Of course, the other things that happened here were HRD dog alerts 2, 3, and 10.
Right.
Which unfortunately, the map that was actually created back at that time is pretty bad. I think I made a better map eventually. Not sure where, but one of those is over on the north side of the road, and two of them are right in the vicinity of this place where you have to go off the main track because it's blocked by all these cars and go sort of on a dirt side shoulder to get forward. So I believe this is the path that the RAV4 actually took.
Mm-hmm.
It's different from the scent trail because they circle the pond so that they can get the RAV4 facing west when they park it. I don't believe they backed it in or turned it around in this narrow stream.
Well, if you look at the photos, if there's no way they could have came through the back way because there's a bumper with a huge piece of metal protruding out the ground blocking the way to drive through there. And if they had drove down there, they would have drove through the grass and the grass would have been pushed down.
In what location?
All right. Do you see how the arrows break up towards the left around the pond?
Yeah.
If you go right where it breaks off, if you go down, there's a lane that went through there, but there was a piece of metal and a bumper in the middle of that lane. So there's no way you could drive through there. And if you did, you'd have to drive where the tall grass was, and it would make an imprint of a vehicle or something driving through there.
And it wasn't there.
Correct. So it went around. And the fact that Chuck seen lights, it would have had to go around.
Well, that if that's the night it got planted, the lights could have been people looking at the car with flashlights, bright flashlights. Okay, so this other route I put up here is maybe a route somebody who knew the yard might have took because it's a better path.
Yeah, the second route seems more plausible.
But the scent dog went down this way, but actually went up this way for a little while. So the scent dog actually came in from the north. Mm-hmm. It went down this one lane and then turned back and recaptured, went over here.
Is that the same lane that the van that Chuck was driving broke down in when he hit a rim?
I'm not sure.
It's in the flyover footage of the news. They got a brown, I believe it's a Chrysler van with yellow tape around it, parked in the middle of the yard. In Chuck's interview, he states that well, his statement, I should say. No, it's in his November 9th interview. He talks about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but Joris has a overhead flyover picture looking down this lane where, other than a lot of mud, it looks pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
But if so, what we think's happening is the cars are left here where the dog alerts occur. Maybe one person goes forward on foot, maybe two of them, and they're carrying Teresa's scent for some reason. And it seems like they scout around this area and end up down by the pond. We think the actual Rav4 took one of the two routes where it ends up going west by the pond. So either the orange or yellow line.
Sure.
And then this is the dog trail. Now the dog trail is actually on an old satellite photo, so it doesn't. This is actually a flyover photo, contemporaneous with the crime. So this actually shows where the cars are. If you look at the one that was marked up by Fauski, I think it's over a year old, and you can't really count on it for that level of detail.
Sure.
See if I can find a photo I'm talking about.
Okay. Is there some way Millbilly and I can switch back and forth pretty easily? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I've got infinite regress going again.
Yeah, I think we've got a bit of tunnel vision going on there.
Yeah, let's stay over here until he's ready. Do I have to stop sharing first? Or?
No, you just click on it when you want. I'll let you know when I find it.
Okay.
There's only so many of them.
Okay, so we're still trying to piece together the planting. It is interesting just the fact that they have an imprint of another vehicle. Yeah. I also did an investigation of off-road tires that are built for lifted Jeeps. So, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find. I was hopping topics so much that I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find it. But a lifted Jeep is so this is a slightly lifted Jeep, but this Jeep has a very non-stock suspension, and it's split independent tires, and this Jeep's capable of getting into some pretty concocted positions. So this is a Jeep CJ5. They were made until 1983. We think that Tara, Ryan Hilligis's sister Tara, and her husband owned one, and it was used for off-roading. So when you buy one of these and build it up for off-roading, you do things like change the suspension. There's a thing called lifting it, which is to give you more ground clearance.
Yes.
You change out the suspension, the whole body gets raised, and then you put in some huge tires. So this one has very big tires, and you can see it has unusual tread. It almost looks like a construction equipment tread. Now, what I found was there's a set of tires. I can't quite remember the word, but it was like swamp tires.
Oh, yeah.
That are like the most extreme of these off-roading tires that are the highest up, and they tend to have very unusual treads and knobs on them because they're for like driving through mud and water. But it's very possible. So we're looking for a vehicle. I think it's probably either a construction vehicle or an off-road vehicle. These bolts might be an indicator of something like a half-track vehicle.
quite a distinctive edge to that, though, as you were saying, almost like a surface.
Right. So this wasn't a tire. This was a track.
Yeah.
A linear track, and then these bolts would be holding it to the.
All right, I got the photo.
Right.
All right. Do I have to hit stop, or can you just steal it?
No, just click
Just do that. Just do that.
Yep.
See what I mean?
Yeah. So that would all be showing tire ruts, right? The area on this side of the white station wagon, and that's the other thing is I think there's probably a lot of debris just laying around, unless it's policed by Chuck and Earl a lot.
Is that thing that you said is sort of embedded in the ground there?
This piece of metal right here.
Good sized piece of metal would mess up your tire and wheel well pretty bad.
And it looks like half of a rear bumper of an old truck.
Right. Yeah, but it's exposing all of its corner edges.
Just saying though, if a car had driven through the grass on the left, you'd seen it.
Absolutely. The other thing we have is okay. So I had a finding that indicated that the damage to the wheel well liner was recent. So the proof on that. Let me see. Okay, so we found a new evidence photo of the RAV4 that gives us a better picture.
This is it parked outside of Calumet County Sheriff's Department after they pull it out of the white container.
Right, but I think earlier we had like a picture where this thing looked more amorphous.
Yeah, that was when it was in the Wisconsin State Crime Lab, when they took pictures in the dark.
Yeah, and it was just not as sharp. Here we can see. I think this thing here is the trailing edge of the wheel well liner. Yep. This piece that's sort of flap on the end of the piece. But the thing that's interesting is we have this mud on this piece, and the mud. There's a lot of mud on it, and it probably was put on it when it got rolled up by the tire. So if we think how a tire normally works in mud and in water, it usually throws water behind it at the bottom edge, and or in front of it at the bottom edge, based on the rotation direction, and it doesn't throw that much mud up on the fender liner on the top. And if we look at the other fender liners on the RAV4, they do not have mud up here. They do have mud on the doors primarily. If I could find, there's a bigger version of this picture here it is. Mm-hmm. So if we look here, we can see behind the tire where there would be a splash guard on a truck. The tire's throwing all sorts of mud on the just under the door, and it's also this brownish red material, and that brownish material matches what's on the wheel well liner. So if we think of the timeline would reset every time that Teresa would clean her vehicle. Since the last time she cleaned it, and I don't know how often she cleans it, in fall, some people in Wisconsin have this belief that if it's below freezing, you shouldn't take your car to a car wash.
As soon as they put salt on the road, you want to wash your car.
Absolutely, but I mean, I'm hearing this from people up here. I haven't lived here all my life, but I've lived here long enough. And my wife picked it up from someone. That's why I hear it. Okay, so one thing we see is this chalky white part above that's an undercoat to the dirt.
I have a better photo if you want to switch to mine.
Sure.
Yeah, this is the whole photo. So I basically cropped in on this.
I can zoom in as much as you want.
Yeah. So if we look at the dirt on the side, there's a chalky white powder that's on most of the door, and then there's the mud. I do know that the driveway to Teresa's house is white stone.
Mm.
So it's possible that the chalky white is from her house. It's also possible it's just she drives around to a lot of places in rural areas, and white stone driveways are pretty common in rural areas. But the mud is an undercoat, and I think because it's on the wheel well liner, it's tied to the time when the accident occurred that dislodged
Okay. What do you make of this? John Earl testifies that he disconnected the front drive shaft. The rear one's disconnected.
Well, I think this isn't my topic, but I think Henbury wrote a very interesting book about this. Yeah, that doesn't look like the rear of the car to me, but I don't know where he grew up. You know, in England they drive on the wrong side of the road. So
Excuse me. We drive on the correct side of the road, and it's historical because most people are right-handed. When you want to draw your sword and battle with somebody, you drive your horse on the left-hand side.
Oh, so it has to do with preparing for jousting and
exactly,
and sword combat. Well, and then we lost it because that's what Yanks do, right?
And do you know who else drives on the left-hand side of the road? The Aussies.
Well, the Aussies only do it because the Brits taught them to. Isn't it? I mean, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that. And then I know they do it in Bermuda, but I'm pretty sure I know what the underlying thing is there. I don't know. I certainly am just trying to make happy banter. I'm not trying to make anybody upset.
I know.
So when we look at this newer picture, because of that mud up on the rolled up fender liner, I think what we're seeing is that this was contemporaneous with the damage to the car.
Yeah.
And also it's also the last coating on the side of the door. So it's the last mud. I believe it's saying it's the last mud the RAV4 drove through.
Very good point.
Well, you can see the mud that's on the inside folded up inner fender well is the same mud that's matching the exterior on the.
Right, but it's the top mud. It's the last mud the car went through. So the fender well wasn't damaged, and then the car was driven a long way. Like, well, Ryan's totally wrong, right? Because he's saying this happened so long ago, and she's just not bothered getting insurance. It's got the most recent mud on it. And if it had been washed, Millbilly, can you pull up one of the other wheel wells so we can just see what the top of a wheel well looks like? Yeah. So here's one. Now this one has a mud flap, and it probably didn't go through as much mud. But the top of the wheel well just doesn't collect mud. I think there are pictures of the other side front wheel. And it's the same thing. It's clean up there. You don't throw mud, even going through mud, you don't throw mud at the top of your fender liner.
Mm.
Okay, so this means that there's a good chance that accident happened in the yard. And that's why I wanted to bring it up while we're going through these paths through the yard. All right, so back to me. Yeah, so here's a picture of it at the yard. You can see the same dirt pattern on it. This is proving it wasn't changed that much since the Sturm photo.
Mm. Yeah, but you notice there's a hole in that door handle, and then the car outside Calumet, there ain't.
Well, I don't want to get into the two Rav theories.
There's a hole in the what? Sorry, in the door handle.
Yes, if you zoom in.
What the keyhole?
Yep, right next to the keyhole where you stick your hand, there's a small hole in the handle.
Yep, right there. That's it, right where that was right there. He had his arrow right on it. There it is.
If you zoom
That's
in.
it.
All right, to zoom in, I probably have to do this. Uh-oh.
Hey, Pete.
Okay. That. Can you see my mouse? I don't know.
Yes, I'll move it back over to you now.
There we go.
Right.
But it could be just tool mark damage to the dirt.
Okay, well, where is it when it's parked outside Calumet?
Well, they've cleaned the dirt. So. I'm just saying we don't know it's a hole. It's obviously a place where the dirt's been cleaned. It could be a hole.
Is that the driver's side?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the driver's door.
Yeah. So it's most likely just from being handled.
Well, but everybody says they didn't. We didn't do anything.
Okay, so that was just all I really wanted to get into this topic. So Teresa and I are we've been beating our heads against this rear entry, what we can put together, see if we can. So the main reason this tire is so important is this could point at the accomplice of the car planter, and it looks like a very unique pattern.
It doesn't. I mean, it's one of these things where if you don't know where the tire track came from, what vehicle it was on, then if you don't know what it is, that's something worth looking into, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but
it's quite a distinctive pattern.
Does it bog your mind that we have all these photos and they just used just the teeniest bit in his trial?
Well, when your theory of the crime is so wrong,
they
you don't
use
want to show
90% of the time they're looking at computer generated images.
Yeah.
They're not looking at actual. They took thousands of photos of the property, but they chose to use, because they know if they showed them the actual Stephen Avery's room, there's no crime scene. There's no blood anywhere. What they depict happened did not.
Right. So they try to leave that to, but that was up to the defense to introduce, and the other thing is the only way that garage could be cleaned would have been in a virtual land.
Yes.
That was nobody wanted to clean that garage. All right, I'm not sure what I'm doing here.
Okay.
So
what if the planter's intention was to crush the car, but Steven screwed it up for him because he left the car in the crusher?
Well, the problem is, and I guess most people know this, is before you crush a car, you remove the coolant, you remove
You don't
the
have
oil.
to. You don't have to.
No, you can just spray it all over.
You want to so that you don't get ticketed and fined.
Well, the gasoline you want to remove so that you don't start a fire.
They're true, but if you wanted to, Chuck says it himself. All I got to do is remove the tires.
Well, you probably could crush it with the tires, but the you want the tires and the wheels because they're valuable of themselves. You want to take the gasoline out so that you don't pour 15 gallons of gasoline on the ground. You want to take the motor oil out because it never goes away. It'll seep to the ground, and there's no way to get rid of it. The coolant, maybe you can get away with.
Well, I was always under the impression that you because you can't crush liquid, you had to remove every item of liquid
Before you crush it. to prevent the contamination of the land. All the fluids have to be drained out.
It's
Yeah,
almost an
I think you'll find
environmental
that's EPA legislation.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's worse than that. I mean, used motor oil has metal parts in it. It's
Yep.
really nasty stuff.
I'm just saying, you
bad
could
news.
stick a whole car in full and crush it.
Oh, no doubt. I'm just saying that also the thing that's the most valuable, you got a brand new $140 battery. You know, this guy's collecting aluminum cans to make a living, and he's going to go destroy a $140 battery. It's like just taking that out would be a week's work.
Speaking of batteries,
Let's move on to the battery. Okay, so this is now what's going on. It's like, yeah, I think when StreamYard's going on, my computer slows down. So to get here, I know I put it in the appendices of my Louvre Science 2 Thread Me Memorial. So if we go to the appendices, this is all up here on Twitter for anybody who's interested.
Yep.
I used to post on Reddit, but really the biggest problem I had with Reddit was the tire redacting everything.
yeah,
It's just like I have to go make special versions of everything, or somebody scolds me. It was just getting like I can't say Ryan Hilligus on Reddit. Like people don't know who RH is.
I don't do Reddit.
Yeah. So I gave it up, but TikTok Manitowoc was a great group of people up there. Okay, so here we're going to talk.
Oh, I'm not denying the people aren't good. I'm just saying the rules
Yeah.
are idiotic. But
Well,
it is what it is. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go through and discuss the Rav4 battery. In my thread, I do this step by step in a lot of detail, but most of it just works off of this one photo.
Sure.
So this is actually the new battery inside of the Rav4 as it was installed by whoever put it in.
Notice the bolt.
All right. One of the things you notice is that the battery cables have been removed from the battery terminals at the bolt end of the battery terminals. And one of the bolts has been left here. The cables are pulled back. They are there. This one you can see on the left side. On the right side, it's pulled up so you can't see it. The bolt for the left side is not in vision, and I don't think it's there. So that's a clue that somebody didn't want these to be able to be easily reattached. But the big thing about the battery, this is an interstate, I think it's called a Megatron. I guess Transformers hasn't sued them yet, or vice versa. But it's a MT58 battery, and it differs from the group size 35 battery that the car came with because it's too short and too wide. So this thing is called either the battery hold down bar or the battery hold down strap. Some people call it bracket, but and it's not as wide as the battery. So what they did to hold down the battery is not sitting in the tray properly on the bottom because of this. And you can see on the part near the firewall that they took this angled bar on the bracket, and they've actually bolted it down against the top of the battery case. It's not reaching around the battery case. That's because it's not wide enough to go around the battery. The other thing they had to do was these things are a pain because getting these the nut and washer off, you got to get it all the way up the bolt shaft, and I don't know. These things were probably invented in 1930, and nobody's complained enough, so that design sort of resolved. And then you spend all this time with this rusted nut trying to get it up this rusted screw. But when they did it, they had to bow the long bolt that's in here because the battery's wider than it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And when they did that, you can see that the washer and nut have had to slide back in the bracket, and they've exposed some of the bracket that was under the washer.
Yep.
You can also see when they did that they cleaned part of this hold down bar there where there was a big thick piece of dust. It looks like they cleaned it with something that looks like a thumb.
Right, that's where they've used their thumb to press down on it to make it fit down on top of the actual battery. Yeah, it weren't going to go, so they had to force it. He's pushed it down with his hand. Right. That's a thumbprint now.
Now, if we look at the firewall, we also see that while they were turning this screw, so there's a portion of turning that nut that you can't just do. Also, it's hard to turn that nut with a glove on. I'll tell you that if you've ever done this yourself. And then there's a portion of the firewall that's been cleaned from when they had to tighten the nut down.
Yep.
And their hand and knuckles are hitting the firewall, operating the wrench on the nut.
Yep.
So when they did this, let me see. I think I have some better pictures, but it's just a zoom in on this one. You can see that the nut got scored. There's a line through it where the tool they used on that nut was not a proper wrench, and it applied all its pressure just on a narrow line and actually scored the nut. Okay, so let's think back. There was some size 35 normal type battery in here when it was bought. That battery probably went dead. A lot of times when you're in cold weather areas of Wisconsin and your battery goes dead, people replace their battery rather than screwing around with hoping it got charged enough to start again. Because when it's really cold out, your battery puts out a lot less power when it's cold, and relying on that battery may not be a good idea. So you might put in a different battery. I've changed my battery more in Wisconsin than I would in other parts. A lot of places you live and you just drive for 2 hours and you figure it's going to be fine. But if it's like 5 degrees with a 10 to below wind chill, it's like even when the battery's fully charged, sometimes it won't start. It's not unusual to change your battery more. So there's a couple other things unusual here. So we see at the time the battery was changed, some of the dirt was removed, which gives us a feeling for the relative time between the original dirt and the dirt at the time the battery was put in. But if we look at the top of the battery, it gives us a better indicator. And the top of the battery, especially in the area of the label, is almost clean. So also, the way I usually get a battery is I go to a parts store, and the first thing they ask me is what car I have. They enter it in a computer, and they tell me what battery size to get. So this battery is actually offered at the exact same price, actually with a little bit more cold cranking amps in the right size. So this battery is not an enhancement in any way to Teresa's an interstate battery in Teresa's size. There's a Megatron that's MT35 that actually had 560 cold cranking amps that she could have bought for the same price today as this battery. There's one other thing very unusual about this battery is the 75-month warranty. Usually batteries come with either 12 or 24-month warranties. I think 24-month is the most common. And 75-month is, I think this is what they picked up on, is this battery had to be bought under some special agreement to get the 75-month warranty. So I think Zellner's commenting on it. But the simple things are, this battery looks pretty new. It's clean. It was put into the car.
When you change the battery, is that how you disconnect the battery? I usually disconnect it from unbolting where it bolts onto the studs.
Well, one of the other things is, so the tool marks show that they didn't have a proper wrench to work on that little nut. I don't think they had the wrench to work on the stud bolts.
You think they maybe used like a mold grip?
I'm not sure what they use. That's possible. I was thinking it might be even worse than that. They might have just used 2 keys.
Well, did you ever look into to see if the Rav4 came with a top post or side post?
I did look at these, and I think they are authentic Toyota
connectors.
I think they're called cable terminals, or is what they call them.
Yeah.
I think they may be. Toyota has different metals on theirs depending on whether it's a cathode or anode. So there are 2 different parts, and that's to get them to not corrode. But they actually look like probably the originals. I heard the post sizes for these batteries were a little different, which means it might have took a lot of effort to tighten that down on that post when they put it in. And then when they're disconnecting it, they probably don't have a tool to work on that post. And it was probably much easier to access that nut on top. Also, if you go to a garage, and I mean, we're talking about young guys at work, a lot of them. But, the first thing you'd expect them to do is get a wet rag and to clean some of this dirt out when they're changing the battery, right? You don't just put a battery in for someone and not clean up this hold down bracket and not wipe it off. And this thing is just filthy. Now I know people will argue that she was poor and she might have gone to a very but this car was her most prized possession, I think, at her age.
She wasn't poor. She was a productive photographer that was growing her business.
Right, and she also had wealthy parents, relative. I mean, she was a middle class person. She was becoming independent.
And she charged $8 for every photo.
Well, I'm just saying.
It's a fact. All her receipts are for $8.
Well,
majority. Even her mom paid her $8. Wrote her a check.
Right. So you're agreeing that she doesn't have a lot of cash.
Yeah, but you make lots of money when you do them risque photo shoots.
Well,
her and Tom Pierce were both into that industry.
Well, I will say that I haven't done it. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't make much money doing it. but so there's a lot to gather from this one photo. Let's just start as a recap. The battery's the wrong size, and the battery's looks like it could be brand new. The battery's also there's 3 interstate battery dealers in Wisconsin that are very large, and the closest one to the location of the Avery Salvage Yard is in Appleton, which is a lot closer to where Teresa lives than it is to where Stephen lives. The battery warranty is unusual, and there's another thing is when you buy a battery, they're supposed to mark on the battery. I think they punch this sticker out to show the date and year that you bought it. Mm-hmm. And this, as far as we can tell, unless everything's under the bracket, this battery warranty sticker is not punched.
No, it's not. You can look at other angles.
Yeah, it's possible, like under the cold cranking amp there, the 540, maybe that's a punch. But you're supposed to do it right in those circles. And that's so you know when your warranty expires. And if it's unpunched, you don't have a warranty. At least not through just showing your battery to a dealer. So they would have to have a warranty through a different type of paperwork. There is a barcode on this that there's been some rumors that Zellner's been able to track down the barcode and know who actually has a warranty on this battery. I have no knowledge of that, but you can see you can see there's a number there. I think we can read the the Arabic numerals down there, and the barcode undoubtedly is the same number. So the battery itself is a problem. The other problem is this is not a battery anybody should have sold to Teresa for this car.
No.
It's not an upgrade. It's the wrong size. And when it was installed, some things were done that shouldn't need to be done. But it is, this battery today is worth $140. So back then, probably worth $120.
Yep.
And if Stephen needed a battery, just let's say he put her car in his garage, which I think is the story they have, right? And he left the headlights on because everybody leaves the headlights on in their garage. And he comes back and it's dead, so he needs to put a battery in it so he can move it back to the back of the pond. He's in a junkyard. They have an entire building full of batteries that have been pulled out of wrecks.
Yep.
Is he going to get a brand new $120 battery to just move this car to the back? It's crazy. He put in some piece of junk. And then the other thing is, I think B-Zaps was talking to me this week, and he's saying, and he wouldn't put this goddamn battery hold-down bar back in place, right?
He wouldn't have left the battery in it.
Well, for sure, because that battery is money. For what's on the junkyard, this would be one of the best batteries they probably have on the whole junkyard.
If the battery had gone flat, what they've also got at the junkyard, because it's a garage, is they've got those battery boosters. They're like on a trolley, and so all he would have needed to do would have just been Steve wouldn't have needed to change the battery. If it had run flat, he would have just used the battery charger, the mobile battery charger, and just fire the engine up.
Well, maybe there was a bullet hole in it.
Or maybe there was no battery in that car.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they found it,
before they planted it.
But so we have a bunch of things. It's very unlikely this battery was put in here by Stephen. No. It's also unlikely it was put in here by Bobby. He's got access to all sorts of junk batteries. This battery's unusual. That 75-month warranty is a very unusual thing for a battery. I think somebody said it was a fleet agreement was the only way you could get it.
Yep.
But I didn't do the research. I think Case File Reader on Reddit said that. He asserted it, and he didn't provide his sources. The battery has been put in improperly. But it has been, the way it is here, it is probably secure enough to drive a pretty long distance.
Yeah.
And if you weren't going to drive a long distance, you wouldn't go to the trouble of securing it this much. To drive it a mile and let it bounce around in this bracket is not a big deal. But it's if you take it to highway speeds, it's probably going to rattle like all hell. But if it looks like it's been secured to drive a significant distance. And one of the things we got to remember is in the back of the RAV4, we have bloodstains from Teresa's head. And she was put in this car with a head wound and driven a significant distance. And it's not clear where this would have occurred, but this battery was probably put in by somebody involved in the crime, or the battery was replaced by somebody trying to move it onto Stephen's yard to frame somebody.
Mhm.
And in both cases, I think it was probably driven a significant distance, not just around the corner, because it's just this took some time to do to get these screws back on here. I think I have I go through this step by step. Most of it I think I've hit on.
Mhm.
And I give a bunch of close-ups, but it's all working off the same thing. I told you, so here's the group size 35 Megatron battery, and it's 140, 195, 550 cold cranking amps. Here's the MT58, 101, the exact same price. It's just the one is the right size for her car. It's taller and narrower. And now it's true if she didn't go to a large dealer, they might not have had the battery she wanted. But she already doesn't have the right brand. What dealer did she go to? Because this isn't Toyota's brand. All right, the battery is clean. So one thing is Zellner made a big deal out of the fact that some of the older Crown Vic police interceptors. What?
You had it there a moment ago.
Yeah, if I click in the wrong place, it's like everything has its problems. So the problem is that the Type 58 is not just used in police Crown Vics. She might know something we don't from that number on it.
Yeah.
But there's lots of cars that use size 58. It's less common than size 35, but it's not uncommon. There's a lot of reasons why different cars have different size batteries. Most of them are accidental. Okay, so here we're on the battery investigation.
Mhm.
Okay, I think I have a picture toward talk. Oh, here. I wanted to talk about, so you see the scoring on the nut?
Mm.
So this probably wasn't tightened with a proper wrench. And it's very badly damaged. The tool marks left by the tool they used damaged this nut quite a bit. It didn't crack it in half, but
No.
it's cut a seam through it. Now, one thing I had was sometimes when you're really without tools, what you'll do is you'll take two car keys and clamp them onto a nut to act like a wrench.
Mhm.
And the thin edge of a car key is about the width of these tool marks.
True.
I've also had like do it yourself, or not do it yourself, some assembly required furniture that comes like with its own little wrench that's like plate. It's like press out from plate metal.
Yep.
And a lot of times they're real thin like that and damage the nuts when you use them because they put all the stress on a narrow band. But this thing really looks cut into, and it's almost for sure this happened when they were tightening it, or trying to break the initial lock to loosen it the first time. Now, there's something else I think might tell us whether the person was right or left-handed, but I haven't really. So when we look at the firewall dirt, I think what we're seeing is for some reason they keep rubbing their left hand into the firewall. So that would be when they're tight. That's probably trying to loosen it, right? No. See, counterclock is loosening. So when they're trying to tighten it down, they're running their hand into the firewall. I think that makes them left-handed, but it might be. I don't know. I always use a wrench in my strong hand, but I'm not sure that that's as universal as like writing.
No, writing and using a wrench is not the same thing.
No, but so do you use a different hand for operating a
Well,
wrench?
it depends on the position I am when I'm working on a car.
Yeah, well, you become more ambidextrous because the car is designed to just torture your mind, and
Yeah.
Like if you're changing a starter.
Well, it's like it also helps to be.
You kind of look where the bolt is and then put your hand there.
For some people, it's kind of, where do I put the petrol in?
Yeah.
But if I were operating with my right hand, if I used my right hand, I don't think I would touch that firewall there at all.
Well, unless you use your left hand to put the bracket down and hold it down while you bolted it with your right hand.
Okay, so he's having to do something maybe with his left hand other than tighten the bolt. Because I think the bolt is held in the tray. You don't have to do that yourself. There's like a J connection down there, or sometimes
we really don't know if those threads are all the way through the bottom plate of the battery holder. It could just be sitting on top.
Well, if it's doing that, then it's not really holding the battery down.
No.
Yeah, that's
I'm just
true.
saying, we don't know. Zelda don't know either because she hasn't got the car.
Well, I just wanted to have a discussion of this because it would be interesting. Because I'm just seeing if I'm operating a wrench with my right hand.
I just find it funny that they took the time to set the bolt down.
Well, it depends how far they had to drive. So I have a theory.
I mean, that's them taking it off. So they would have already parked the car. Why would they care where the bolt went? I would just fling it anywhere. Like, well, where's the other one?
No, those bolts are just on the battery cable. I'm talking about the bolt on the hold-down
I'm talking about
bar.
the bolt that's sitting on the inner fender well. That was on the negative terminal.
Right, but those come off pretty quick. That's
I know. I'm saying, why did the person set it there? As to it just toss.
Well, I think it makes sense if you just wanted the battery disconnected, so you were sure the battery wouldn't go dead. I could see you putting bolt nuts there, right? Right, you just lay them there, so when you want to reconnect it, they're handy.
Why did they fingerprint that? I know you can't fingerprint every surface, but it'd be worth a try.
Well, here, a lot of these things are things that would be difficult to do with gloves on.
Yeah, unless they're rubber gloves.
Well, if you had tight rubber gloves, but you're already looking at a guy improvising for his wrench. The idea that he's got everything he would have in a nice garage.
What does law enforcement have in every car? They have a medical kit and they have rubber gloves. Just saying.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely. If she knows it's law enforcement, then they found the car somewhere else and put this battery in. That's I think her public theory.
Yep.
But I'm just saying, if I'm using my right hand on the nut closest to the firewall,
like I said, she can tweet whatever she wants. I can
turn it either way without getting anywhere near that firewall.
Hmm.
I mean,
if you had to rest your hand anywhere, you'd rest it above the battery, even above the engine compartment, on the lip, where the seal, where the hood latch, where the hood lid comes down and joins the base of the windscreen. You'd rest your hand there if you had to work on it.
Right, and then you got a lot more space because you're standing on this side. You got a lot more space to operate the wrench with your right hand. If the battery were on the other side, your left hand would have an advantage. I think it may suggest a person's left-handed. I don't know if we know who's left and right-handed, but But you're right that if you do enough auto work, you develop the ability to use either hand, because there's situations where having other hands would even be helpful. I look at old cars, and sometimes it's like 3/4 of the space under the hood is empty.
Yes. It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah. Just one point. Could that sort of cleaning effect, as you say, just there, where you're saying it could be where somebody was twisting their hand, could it just be simply the act of actually putting the battery in place, handling it in place?
Oh yeah. So I did go through this in my mind. We haven't talked about it. Is if you go through the whole thing, and we were starting to talk about it, the old battery's in here. So I had to unscrew these old tight screws from the old battery. That's probably where I scored that nut, because I'm not that worried about tightening it down the second time, but the first time it's probably locked on. So I had a hard time with the nut near the firewall with the old battery in there. It's excruciating to get these nuts out with then you got to. So the threads look pretty good now, but that's after the nut was run up it and down it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it started, those were probably rusty too. They tell you to soak it in WD-40 if you have that handy, but it doesn't look like this happened with that much supplies. Then I had to remove the battery terminals at the battery post, because I had to put it on another battery. So I had to undo those clamps. I had to take those out of the way and then pick up the old battery. And then I had to pick up the new battery. Batteries aren't super heavy. I did look it up. This thing's 35 pounds, but they're compact. So like 35 pounds in one hand is just, with the shape of a battery, is not going to happen. So you got both your hands under this thing when you're putting it back in with the hold down bar removed, and you got the post pulled back. So there's a good chance there's fingerprints on the bottom of the battery. I think you could do all that with gloves on without much trouble. Yeah. You lay it in that tray. Now you're trying to you either put the battery post back on, or you put the hold down bar on. You have to screw these screws all the way back down. Now you got to tighten it down. You're getting frustrated because you just realized the bracket's not wide enough. You probably realized that the battery was too wide when you laid it in the tray at the bottom. Mm-hmm. So this didn't happen super fast, and the person took no time at all to clean the work area, which, other than what rubbed off probably on his gloves or knuckles.
There was a question here from T1. Does the evidence around the battery suggest an experienced mechanic or not? Well, he says juvenile, somebody that's not experienced.
Well, I think the solution that was developed for the battery that's too wide and not tall enough is fine. I mean, if you don't have the tools with you, what are you going to do? I don't see anything where anything's. I mean, the tool marking on the nut that damaged the nut's just showing that they didn't have the proper wrench with them.
Yeah.
All I'm seeing is evidence that the person didn't have a wrench set with them. This wasn't done in a garage.
Yeah.
And also, they had no interest in cleaning up, which would have helped them keep themselves clean too, because they're getting this grime on them from handling these things by not cleaning it first. But the battery itself is strange. I don't think it's junkyard battery.
No, and it's certainly not Teresa that's changed that. Well, not she will change it, but she's not taken it to the dealership in is it Lemo in Green Bay that she got the car from? She's not taken it there, and they've not
Lemieux. Yeah.
Lemieux. They've not put that in.
Yeah, it's the same name as a famous hockey player. So
right,
Mario Lemieux. but they are the largest Toyota dealer in Green Bay.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, they would have put the right. I mean, they would have definitely had it. And then Interstate in Appleton, which is closer to our house, they call it an all battery shop. They would have definitely had every size. Usually, if you go to a place, they'll have one in your group size. They may not have the brand you want, but they'll have their standard brand in your group size usually.
Sure.
Yeah, so there's a lot to learn from here. I do think so. What we would like to see is them get trace evidence, fingerprinting, and an attempt to find some DNA.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the person probably handled that nut on both sides with their fingers, because it's very difficult to turn a nut unless they had like rubber surgical gloves.
Or socket wrench.
Well, even with the socket wrench, you need one of those special socket wrenches that can go over those damn posts.
Yeah,
you need a very deep set. A very deep set.
Deep socket.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, you're trying to do that by hand, and it's getting stuck every time there's a rusty ridge on the screw. But there's a good chance there's something on the bottom of the battery, because the battery was placed in. There's a good chance they rested their hands on the side. So that rubber, or the hard plastic, is what it really is. The hard plastic is probably a good surface for retaining fingerprints. Especially if the hands get covered with grime, because the grime will get laid down on the relatively clean hard plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And then there might be something even from that place.
You know what there ain't? There ain't no blood.
Oh no.
Oh, that's the other thing. Yeah, is he's got this bleeding finger. If Stephen was playing with this battery, first I could hear him cussing, but
Yes.
yeah. If you were doing this under stress, I think it would be even worse. It's like these screws just don't care that you want to be in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it was at night with just a flashlight, that would probably make it even harder. Okay, so I think that's all I had. But I found these photos that really help, I think. There's a lot of write-ups on Reddit by Case File Reviewer when he first was looking through this, and they can make it out to be more complicated than it is. I mean, it's the wrong size battery. It's put in hastily anyway, and there's lots of opportunity for evidence to be there if we get Dr. Palahniuk's SEM going.
Yeah.
And then the tool marks, like if that was someone's keys, that might have left some damage to the keys too.
Yes, I must admit, I didn't realise that there was, as you say, that damage to the nut there.
Yeah. So
and it is a particularly thin line of damage, isn't it?
Yeah. So the tool. What tool were you thinking, Paul?
Well, I was thinking a mole grip, but looking at the damage there, I'm not. Well, it could be.
Yeah, because I mean, if you used the pliers, it wouldn't. It would damage it, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's something thin. It's something they had available. That's why I'm thinking it could be keys. And I've done that once. I've done it where I made a sandwich of two keys to make a wrench.
Yeah.
The thing about that is, I think grooves would not. It wouldn't just be one groove. There'd be two grooves slightly offset.
Mm-hmm.
But we can only see one side, so. Yeah, and then the washer slid back quite a bit, which
it is, isn't it? Yeah.
But I think they had to bow the bolt, the long bolt, and but that would have been a pain getting that on too. That's not something that that would have been easy to do.
Yep.
Because it's too narrow, and so they had to put that whole bracket down in parallel. They had to have both ends off to get the battery in there. They had to fully remove it. Yeah, so somebody spends quite a bit of time screwing around here.
Mm.
Somebody that we want to know the identity of. Okay, that might be enough for today.
Sure.
Let's see. I got people answering my questions on Twitter already. But all right, so back to you.
Well, that was great. Thank you, and thank you, Sean, for popping in, saying hi. And Millbilly, are you still there?
I'm here.
Still there? Good, excellent.
I see him back by the
gentlemen.
Rav4, I think.
Yeah,
I'm underneath the tarp.
Better
Okay,
watch out
well,
for Colburn under there.
Yes. The only bit of news that I've got recently discovered is Sean Reck doing his trying to sell his documentaries and films that he's done recently, and obviously his version of Making the Murder is one of them. And what was interesting, and I'll just share this with you. I'll just read out what he'd actually written. I'll find it in my photographs here. Just 2 seconds. Here it is. Here it is. Have I missed it? Basically, it was saying that. Oh, here we go. Now, why have I got that? Oh, there we go. Yes. So Sean Reck posted, this year we are releasing 3 docuseries and 3 films, the culmination 15 years of work collectively. Convicting 10 times 40-minute episodes reevaluates the murder of Teresa Holdback and the frenzy caused by making a murderer. It also examines the ethics of documentary filmmaking, which sounds a bit...
There's a documentary filmmaker.
Yeah, you're doing a documentary about another documentary because you're going to question the ethics of it. Anyway, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. Wait and see.
Originally, he was putting out signals that he was going to be very pro police.
Yeah,
and then he approached some people in the TikTok Manitowoc community, acting like he had some interest in hearing our side. But I don't think that ever went through with anyone I know.
Well, we see the guy. Is his name AC Rookie? That is or AC?
Yeah.
Apparently, I get them confused. I actually see that bit of him talking with Ken Kratz when Kratz, what do I need Kakach for? What do I need her for?
Yeah.
He would just get somebody to come in, kick the body, say they're dead, and that's it, But
yeah, I think they put out a trailer that was extremely pro police, and I think probably won't get much viewership. And
well, what was interesting was that. On the site where I saw it, a film, a cinema somewhere in America, the owner of the cinema just said, send me a direct message. I would be interested in one of them, but didn't specify which one. because he's got these other documentaries as well. Wrong Cat follows a legal team as they try to reverse the longest wrongful conviction in U.S. history. The original crime is tied to the 1969 Chicago murders of Black Panther leader Fred Hampton and his bodyguard. And then there's Salvador. 640 Minutes takes a personal look at the murder of 4 American nuns in El Salvador in 1980. Missing Lauren Spiera, 120 Minutes, takes a deep dive into the 10-year-old disappearance of a student at Indiana University and closely examines each of the alleged suspects. Anyway,
Well,
yes.
We'll have plenty of time to blast his documentary.
Absolutely. Listen, gentlemen,
But it probably will do damage to the cause.
It's going to be interesting,
Absolutely.
isn't it? If Netflix, I think what Sean Reck would really like would be for Netflix to say, yeah, we'll screen it, but
while he's bashing their other filmmakers that they won awards with, and the people he's supporting are suing them.
Yeah, well, yes, yep. It is interesting,
I think
isn't
he's
it?
burned his bridge with Netflix.
Yep.
But alrighty,
well, guys,
thanks
I'm
everyone.
I'm just going to thank once again Millbilly, Sean, and particularly Magilla.
Thank you,
Millbilly,
guys.
thanks for sharing your screen. Yep, and we'll see you maybe next Saturday back to normal time.
Cool.
I must admit, I was
Absolutely.
I was out last night and had far too much whiskey, so that's I'm suffering today. I am really suffering today.
Well,
so anyway.
when a Scot says they had too much whiskey, that's going.
Got no sympathy for you. None at all.
I think I might go have a sip.
It was so many different types of whiskey that we tried, and beers that was the problem. Anyway, yes, I'm going to say cheerio. Thanks, guys, for popping in. Thank you to everybody.
Thanks everyone in chat.
Cheerio, Paul.
Yeah,
and Millbilly and Wizard.
Yeah, catch you all later soon.
Hope you ever enjoyed. Bye.
Yeah.
Later.